So, when a client comes in and I talk about we're going to work on a few different levels, I say the first level is I'm going to teach you to stop it, whatever it is, right? Whether it is the anxiety, the compulsive tendency, the craving, the internal dialogue loop, the worry, whatever their issue is. I said the first level is I'm going to teach you how to stop it. With the knowledge that each time you stop it, you are starting a new neural network. Each time you stop it, you are starting to rewire the brain. And then I build this nice little visual that some of you might have seen before. I say to my client, I want you to imagine this, because anything done with repetition, felt with repetition, even thought with repetition, becomes a habituated pattern in the brain. That's what your brain does. It learns. It automates whatever can be automated because it needs a lot of energy. And doing things consciously takes up a lot of energy. So the brain will always automate whenever possible. So I say, imagine it like this. You're going down this road. Here's your habit road. And I say, this is the road you've gone down so many times, no grass grows there, right? It's nice and easy and can be, unfortunately, a default position when you're not actively doing something else. So here's what we're going to do today, and this is what I say to my clients. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to start to go down this road, and I'm going to show you how to put up a roadblock. The roadblock is designed to detour out of that old groove, right? So we're going to start to go down the road, put up a roadblock. It forces the brain to take alternative pathways, to make different neural connections. So each and every time you do these different techniques, these roadblocks, you're helping the brain to rewire. So this is part of my self-directed neuroplasticity frame. And it really means that I give the client a set of techniques where they can continue to rewire their own brain. That's why I gave you the little book. This is the little book, the little anti-anxiety toolkit that I give to every client. It's part of their homework. So I say, here you go, now read this, because it covers the little bullet metaphors of neuroplasticity and how, through repetition, through use, neurons actually get thicker and denser, almost like using a muscle. The more you use that muscle, the thicker and denser and stronger it becomes. That is what you're doing when you do that repetitive problem. So now we need to build new pathways, and then we need to strengthen them. And that's why you're going to do the homework, right? As I've said yesterday, too many hypnotists don't give enough credit to conscious buy-in. People need to have a reason why they're doing these things. They need to have a reason why they haven't been able to solve their problem yet. It's not because they're a loser. It's because their brain is doing what the brain was designed to do, which is to automate and learn, right? So even when people come to me and they say, I have an anxiety disorder or I have depression, as I said, I work by referral. So I'm working with all of these different issues because I'm working in conjunction with their psychiatrist, their doctor. But that means that they've already typically bought into that label, that identity. They're going to come in and say, I have depression, or I have this disorder, and I'm going to say, stop. I'm not a therapist. I can't even use that language legally. In my office, that's a habit. I work with habits, and I'll show you how to break habits. To me, depression is a tenacious habit of the mind, of the body. That's it. And I can show you research that shows you how the brain changes, right? So I start by giving them, this is what we're going to do. The first level is I'm going to arm you with a bunch of different techniques designed to stop it. So you will leave here today on the very first session armed. And that minimizes the occurrence, typically, of the anxiety, of the habit, because there's something about knowing you can stop it that takes away the biggest layer of most problems, certainly anxiety, which is fear of the fear, anxiety of the anxiety, right? Smokers, it's the fear of the craving that stops them from even trying. It's the fear that they won't be able to do it. Once I show them that we can knock down a craving in 30 seconds, they relax around that. And it gets rid of a whole layer of issues, right? So that's the first layer that I teach to almost all clients, because almost every client comes to me with a habituated pattern, whether it's of thought, of feeling, or behavior. And I want to arm them. Second layer is I work with them, right? This is where our little dynamic dance of change work comes in. I work with them to neutralize all of the triggers, then to recondition in how they want to be instead. And then different ways of rehearsing that, of practicing that, of pumping up that neuron so it gets thicker and denser, and rewire that brain. The third layer is really vital, I believe. And when I was first learning, years and years ago, NLP, and they were, I think I said this yesterday, they were really talking about staying away from why, right? How many NLPers here? Yeah? Don't ask why. Ask what, where, when. Stay away from why. Why can get you tripped up for years. And I did. I stayed away from why, right? People would say, I just don't know why. I'm like, I don't give a shit about why you do this thing. I want to know how and when you do this thing so that we can change it. But as I grow up, I realized that what makes us human is our need for meaning and understanding, and our desire to know why. That is what fuels my entire career. Why? Right? So that layer is where we want to bring in some nice deep trance work. And we want to look for why. We want to look for insight. We want to look for meaning. We want to do some integration. We want to do some understanding. And so I'm really kind of creating this system that arms clients with the ways to rewire their own brain with all of these tools and techniques, because in research after research, if you can provide people with affect regulation tools, then that predicts the success of any therapeutic intervention. How well can you teach clients to manage their emotional states? How well can you teach clients to navigate through uncertainty? And that's where the first, level, the self-directed neuroplasticity frame comes in. Now that is neuroplasticity in a counteractive form. Right? They call it counteractive because what you're doing is you are going down the road, you put a roadblock, and you're creating counter roadways, alternative choices. You're not necessarily rewriting the old road. You're providing detours. Now, typically, if the detour is good enough, see, a lot of people are worried about that. They're like, well, what's stopping them from going down the old road? And there's nothing that's stopping them. But I want you to think of it like this. Imagine that every day you would have a horrendous commute. Maybe you lived in LA or something, and you would have to tack on an additional hour and a half according to traffic patterns, and you would sit on that highway for an hour and a half. Right. We've got some people that do that commute here in the audience. Now imagine someone said, oh my God, you don't know about, this particular shortcut? You say, what are you talking about? They're like, oh my God, there's a little road that goes right along the same highway. You just make a right, and you will get there 45 minutes sooner. Now, once you're shown, and it's simple enough where you don't have these elaborate directions, because that's the thing, right? If it's too elaborate, you'd rather suffer for an hour and a half because it's the road you know, rather than the one you don't. But if it's simple enough, and this is the crucial element, if it's simple enough and the reward is so much better, they will never go back to sitting in that traffic for an hour and a half. That would just be fucking stupid. Damn it. Or leave it in. Because I'm the boss. Because I'm the boss of me. And right now you. But only right now. So this is the key, and that's why all of my techniques are meant for New Yorkers. Because, I know, Sean's like, wait, what? How does that work? We were just in LA. I'm talking about fast and easy and simple. So every one of these techniques can be done in under a New York minute. Even my self-hypnosis template, which we'll learn as well. I've got 3 different self-hypnotic techniques that I like to give to each client, and they're all really short and doable. So there's no excuse. Oh, I just don't have time. Really? You don't have 1 minute? So, the second form of neuroplasticity deals with memory reconsolidation. And how many of you were in that class yesterday where I talked about this? Even though I told you to leave. I'm just kidding. I know I said if you're coming to my 3-day, go learn from James Tripp or one of the other amazing trainers, because you'll get this. Well, repetition is good for you. I was telling the story about how once I started really looking at what was happening in the brain many, many years ago, there was a few key things, right, that really changed things for me. One was the work of Jeffrey Schwartz. I read his book when it first came out. It was a really dry, hard read, but he's written easier books now. So Jeffrey Schwartz, if you're going to read one of his books, I would read You Are Not Your Brain, or Brain Lock, where he talks about how he works with obsessive compulsive disorder and how he took, scans of his patient's brain and would show it to them and say, look, your hands aren't dirty, right? Let's just say they compulsively wash their hands. He'd say, but look at what's happening in your brain. It's making a mistake. That's it. Your brain is making a mistake. Your hands aren't dirty. So he signed them on to do his 4-step protocol. And you're going to hear similarities in the 4-step process that we're going to go over. The meta pattern of change that I've learned from John Overdurf, but that you've already been doing if you've been doing change work, because it's underneath almost every single pattern of change. But it also covers the 4 steps of therapeutic memory reconsolidation and Jeffrey Schwartz's work. It's all the same, okay? So we're going to go over that, and that is the other form of neuroplasticity. It's not counteractive. It literally rewrites the old memory, the emotional track of the memory, okay? So we're going to be going over that and many different creative ways to do that. Because when I was first learning and studying Jeffrey Schwartz and Hebbian law and neurons that fire together, wire together, it made sense through repetition how habits are formed, and through repetition how habits are broken and new habits are formed. What it didn't explain was what was happening in my office when I did some EFT and the phobia went away in 5 minutes, or what was happening when I did regression to cause and the phobia was gone in a session, or re-imprinting, or timeline, or any one of the techniques that seemed to have that miraculous change happen in a session, it didn't make sense according to Hebbian law, which is simply neurons that fire together, wire together. So therapeutic memory reconsolidation, which is actually a new twist on memory reconsolidation, and it's fairly new, I think is a game changer. I think that there is a revolution coming in mental health, and it can't come fast enough for me. But once that research leaves the laboratory, as it's starting to do, then it is a game changer as to almost every field in mental health.